Are you a 3PL spending more time and money than you'd like recruiting and onboarding logistics roles? Then it's time to check out Rapido Solutions Group, the leaders in nearshore logistics staffing. Located right next door in Mexico, they have access to the freight talent you need. From carrier sales to tracking and tracing and everything in between, they can do the heavy lifting for you. So if you're ready to get your time back and want to move fast, check out Rapido Solutions Group. Visit gorapido.com to get started today. Have you heard about Bitfreighter and the EDI revolution? Bitfreighter helps companies automate communication with their freight partners through unlimited messaging and quoting. Traditional providers can't say that. The Bitfreighter team is also available 24/7 and responds immediately by phone, email, or yes, even text. Legacy providers can't say that either. So if you want to scale your operations to save time and money, come join the EDI revolution with us. Visit bitfreighter.com to get started today. Hello, and welcome to the Bootstrapper's Guide to Logistics, the podcast highlighting founders doing it the way that doesn't get a lot of attention. We're here to change that by sharing their stories and inspiring others to take the leap.
It's a roller coaster ride. You might ultimately fail.
That's when I kind of knew I was onto something.
It was very hard.
It truly is building a legacy.
The more life you live, the more wisdom you have.
Because we are where we're supposed to be, kind of answering the call.
Don't shoulder entrepreneurship on your own.
I'm your host, Nate Schutz. Let's build something together from the ground up.
Well, hello everybody, and welcome back to the Bootstrapper's Guide to Logistics. We're going to go somewhat meta this week on a podcast, and we're going to interview Sarah Barnes-Humphrey, who's the host and founder of Let's Talk Supply Chain, one of the OG podcasts in the industry. And Sarah is one of the first people to be able to monetize independent media and then have a bigger impact on the industry in a social way and some of the causes that I know that she cares about. So for me, this is a special treat to follow in somebody else's footsteps and learn from what they have done and accomplished already. And then I'm going to 100% apply all of those learnings to our show. So Sarah, welcome. How am I finding you today?
Thank you so much for having me on the show. I mean, this is great. I got all the energy. You're my second podcast today. I think you're my sixth this week.
And you're my second today as well too. So we're in good company.
We are good to go.
So let's go back to the 4 or 5 people in the world who don't know.
And that was a pretty big introduction.
Oh, that's what I'm all about, Sharon. We're on each other's team. That's the whole point here, and I wanna celebrate what you've done. So let's go back to the very beginning for those, again, the few people that don't know about what your brand is and your company and the business that you have. Before you did all of that, what did you do?
So my dad had a freight forwarding company, and literally right out of high school, I decided to go and work for the family business. And I was receptionist for a couple of years. And then I bounced around in operations for trucking, air freight, ocean freight, warehousing, customs, you name it. I kind of did it all, even accounting, I think, on some really weird days. But while I was working and getting my hands-on experience, I also went to school. I went to night school. I did courses by correspondence. I got my FIATA diploma. Did some freight forwarding courses, purchasing courses. And then in about 2008, I got into sales.
Shocker.
Weird year to get into sales, not going to lie. But it was the best year I've ever had in sales.
What do you attribute that to?
Everybody was charging a lot for customs at the time. And I was like, nope, absolutely not. We are going to go in with a flat fee. And I mean, some people liked it, some people didn't, but I brought us a lot of business. And it also brought us some freight clients when I was able to also include the custom. And then, so I was in sales for about 8 years. And one of the things that kept coming up for me in sales, and I was going to these conferences, I was one of 3 females. I mean, at any given conference, it was weird. But what kept coming up is you're going to have to represent the company. You're going to have to speak in public. And I was absolutely terrified. And my mom was like, you need to sign up for Toastmasters. You need to sign up for Toastmasters. And literally every time I went to pick up the phone or type in my application for Toastmasters, I couldn't do it. I could not do it. So I ended up getting a talent agent instead. And I went on auditions. I went and, I did auditions. I wasn't very good with lines.
For like theater or for what?
For acting.
For acting, okay.
TV and movies and commercials and all sorts of stuff. And I got laughed out of audition rooms, yelled out of audition rooms. But I was able to be on live TV with Denise Richards twice. I was in a national photography campaign and I was in a dog food commercial. And that helped me. It's funny how all roads kind of lead to what you do now, right?
Yeah. So you clearly got over the fear of public speaking somehow in there, or no? You still have it?
I still had it, but at least I was doing something about it. So anyways, fast forward from there, I was director of sales and marketing, and we needed a way to be able to tell our brand story. And this was in 2016. So marketing and supply chain
Didn't exist. Yeah.
Engaging.
Yeah.
And I was like, we're going to start a podcast. I was listening to School of Greatness by Lewis Howes. I was like, if Lewis Howes can have a podcast, why can't Sarah Barnes-Humphrey? And I asked a guy from my customs department to be a co-host on the show. And my team and I came up with the name Two Babes Talk Supply Chain to see, tongue-in-cheek, how far we could push the industry. And one night we got 1,000 downloads overnight. And I knew I was onto something. And so we just sort of kept experimenting with different guests and audio versus video and how all of that worked. And then in the fall, we even had a studio at some point. We were doing the podcast in a studio. And then in the fall of 2017, my dad closed his doors. And after 20 years, I was out on my butt with nowhere to go because we want to keep it clean, right?
We do want to keep it clean.
I lost my co-host. I lost my team, but I had companies paying to come on the show. And so I learned graphic design, social media, website design, you name it. I was horrible at graphic design. Like if anybody goes and looks at some of those episodes, I just am so grateful to those who kept, working with me after that. But anyways, in January 2018, I started the Woman in Supply Chain series. And in April 2018, no women would come on a show called Two Babes Talk Supply Chain. So I rebranded it to Let's Talk Supply Chain, and the rest is history.
So I'm picking up on a couple of themes here. The first one is you're comfortable going into places that might actually be uncomfortable. And women in supply chain by itself it's maybe beginning to change, and I'd love your perspective on whether or not it actually is. So that part of it, going into public speaking, trying acting, have you always been, courageous? Is that the right word?
I don't know if that's the word.
Crazy?
Maybe risk. Maybe I take risks.
Okay.
I don't know.
Do you feel that risk though, or is it just you're bold?
I just do it, and then I figure it out later.
That is part of the trick of entrepreneurship is fail fast, be embarrassed at your product early. If you look back at the early, I know my own episodes, I cringe. They're so bad.
I don't watch
anything. You neither.
Two Babes Talk Supply Chain on YouTube. It is awful. But you can find it, and I don't watch it. I don't watch any of my stuff.
Yeah. I don't either. I used to listen to every episode and make notes and critique it and try to get better at individual components of it. And now I have someone else tell me all the things that I need to work on because I can't hear it anymore. It just doesn't work for me. So the other element is putting yourself out there in public, and then you build first a personal brand from it, or you build an audience first. It's kind of one and the other, one or the other. How do you balance the having privacy as a human being and as an individual with making a career out of and a living out of being public?
So that is a really good question. I kind of balance it through social media. And when I first started, it really was more focused on Let's Talk Supply Chain. So getting the episodes out there, the actual content.
Yeah.
Right? Getting the content out there, building the following for Let's Talk Supply Chain. It's only really, I guess, in the last 4 years been about my personal brand and sort of separating the two.
Mm-hmm.
And I do that through social media. So if anybody follows me on Instagram, I don't have a very large following, and I'm okay with that.
Mm-hmm.
And I share most things through stories because they're only around for 24 hours and they go away. So what I want to share from my personal life, majority of the time, and more often than not, is through Instagram stories. And LinkedIn, I reserve for other things. However, this year, I've decided to share more of the ups and downs of my actual journey and share the personal aspects of that, because I want my personal brand to be more about what I've been through, what I've accomplished, and being able to help maybe just one person not go through that for 10 years and maybe, take a year to do it, move on, and be better than I was.
Well, I'm honored that you said yes to being on our show, because that's really the heart of what we're after. Logistics is cool. I love it. I've been doing it for 2+ decades, and it's my favorite thing I've ever worked on. The second part of it, though, and I could talk about it for hours, but not everybody loves logistics, but they do love people. So there's a universal appeal to the journey that entrepreneurs go through of starting from nothing. Not everybody, but bootstrappers for sure, starting with nothing and simply surviving, taking a bunch of punches, getting some support in unexpected places, and simply surviving day to day. So this is the perfect forum. I want to understand and hear some examples of what's the best thing that's ever, unexpected thing that's ever happened. What's the hardest thing you've had to go through? And what are some of the unexpected parts of public entrepreneurship maybe that not everybody knows about?
So one of the hardest things I've ever been through is when my dad closed his doors. Like, since I was 16, I wanted to take over that business. And that's what I wanted for my life. And that was just heartbreaking. I mean, I was crying all over the place. I couldn't stop crying that day. And then it was still hard because there was a lot of blame, right? And it was hard to be in, like, trying to build a public facing brand in a time where, the family was kind of dealing with that kind of stuff. And that was really hard. And also the fact that I didn't have a job and nobody would hire me. Like, I had no income coming in. I walked in on my 37th birthday and I was told that my expense check was going to bounce. I wasn't going to be able to get severance and, so many more things. And I ended up working part-time as a receptionist at a tennis club and also part-time scoring men's basketball.
Really?
I essentially had 2 part-time jobs while I was building the Let's Talk supply chain brand.
So can I ask, what was as you look back on the business closing, and whenever there's a potential generational handoff, it's more than just business. It's not just a P&L. It's not just a company. It's families and lives and careers all intertwined. How do you can't separate it, but how do you unpack that and make peace with it?
I just kept moving forward. I had to keep moving forward. I couldn't sit in what happened because I had no control over it. It had nothing to do with me. Right? I wasn't a decision maker. I didn't make any of those decisions. I lost a lot of really, really, really close relationships through all of that. And it was extremely difficult. And then, your director of sales and marketing, a year later, I'm mopping floors. Right? And so there was a lot to unpack that year, not only externally, but also internally, about what does a title actually mean, and am I going to let it define me?
What's your underlying identity? And the fact that you would do work that many people would say, oh, that's beneath me. I've been at this level. I'm never going backwards. That whether it's humility or perseverance, how long did you have to stay in that place before you felt okay, I've survived the downswing and now I'm beginning to move more in the direction that I thought my life would go?
So I worked both of those jobs until COVID, because COVID shut everything down. So I couldn't work at the tennis club because they had to shut facilities down, and I couldn't score the basketball because they had to shut that down too. And so it was really during the pandemic, and it was actually really good timing because during the pandemic, everything started to swing towards digital content. So
Sure.
that I wasn't doing well. I was building the brand and building the business and slowly making more and more money, but I still needed a job to be able to bring in some income because I didn't take money from the company for the first 3 years.
I mean, that's the essence of bootstrapping right off the bat. The business model of content creation is something that not a lot of folks actually have experience with, so they don't fully understand. It doesn't have to be a very. So how did you learn it? What were the early mistakes that you made?
I just kept stumbling forward and seeing what worked, what didn't work, what people liked, what they didn't like, and just kept doing.
I've heard a lot of folks say that they undervalued what they offered to the marketplace early, and it wasn't until later that they realized, I'm charging too little. Was that the case for you?
Yes and no. I increased it incrementally. As soon as I knew that I delivered more value, I increased the price.
Sure.
I kept increasing it, and I kept testing the market. I kept throwing out a number and then people would take it or they wouldn't. Or somebody came on the show and they paid a certain amount, and then he's still my friend today, and then said, oh, I would have paid this much for that. And I was like, okay.
I'll send you a bill.
No, not him, but next person.
Got it. Well, I mean, it's a valuable lesson. Attention is the most important commodity right now. It feels like, anyways. That's my opinion. But those who can capture someone's attention and then maintain it over a period of years, it's a grind, isn't it?
It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work, and you have to be yourself. You can't be. It would be exhausting if I tried to be anybody else. And at the end of the day, some people are going to like me. Some people aren't going to like me, and that's okay.
So do you deal with negative attention? Do you receive a lot of negative attention?
I have been very blessed in the fact that I haven't had a ton of it. But when I have had a little bit of what you would say maybe negativity, I have usually gone at it head on in a respectful way.
Sure.
So what we've tried to put out is value, but also community conversations in a respectful way. That's what Blended is all about too, right?
Sure.
Is conversations about hard topics. And the first thing I say to everybody is we can disagree, but it needs to be respectful. And so that's what I've tried to do. But I think what's kind of set me apart and what people have really seen from me is that if you're going to put the energy towards commenting on something, I'm going to comment right back because I appreciate your time and energy, and I want to make sure that you feel seen and heard. And it's kind of what we've been about since the very beginning without even quite realizing it and putting it into words, but inclusion, making people feel seen and heard, making sure that we're hearing the various voices within the industry.
So that's counterintuitive, though, because you're creating content and you're doing the talking, and yet the other participant often gets the most value from you listening to them, which is, it's not a broadcast. It's a two-way relationship that can become a dialogue. Have you had any really random experiences that have emerged from this? Maybe you got to travel around the world to a place, or you met somebody that you never otherwise would have met through the show?
All the time. Before the pandemic, I got to go to Panama.
Oh, very cool.
Oh, yeah. And Demo and I are still friends to this day, and we still try to figure out how to collaborate and things like that. But even before this, I was able to go to Australia twice when I was for the family business. And I went to Costa Rica on my own because I was going to start a furniture package company with my brother. And I went to source furniture, and that never happened, but it was a cool experience. So it's the opportunities that are presented to you, but then it's also what you make of it and the opportunities that you create yourself.
Are you an eternal optimist?
I don't know about that. I don't know about that. Maybe.
I mean, I get such a strong vibe from you of you're going to get stuff done no matter what. And I wouldn't stand in your way. Like if we were on opposing sides of a negotiation, I would say, no, I'm folding. I'm giving in.
Depends what it's for.
Good point. Good point. On the shirt that you're wearing, it says diversity matters in supply chain. I've been following you for a long time, so I know that you have a handful of topics that you're very passionate about, and you have a platform that allows you to speak about things that matter to you, which is one of the benefits of content creation. It's early 2024. What are you finding yourself most passionate about right now?
Everything that I'm doing. I wouldn't be doing it otherwise. And there's a lot that we're doing. And so I have to be passionate about it all, to be honest with you, and excited about it. I mean, and I'm excited about things in different ways. So, we talk about diversity matters in supply chain. Well, we started with the Woman in Supply Chain series.
Mm-hmm.
I trademarked Woman in Supply Chain, and not because I wanted to be the trademark police, but because I wanted to bring everybody to the table instead of dividing everybody in time, energy, money, and resources so we can move the needle faster.
Okay.
I've just launched the Secret Society of Supply Chain, which is a 3-part membership group, and that includes a virtual monthly meetup for women in supply chain, virtual monthly meetup for marketing professionals in supply chain, exclusive content in a group for everybody in supply chain called the Supply Chainers. And I'm breaking glass ceilings in a few different ways because we've seen some of this stuff done in other industries, but we haven't necessarily seen it done in our industry. And so that makes me excited.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know a lot about community management. I don't know a lot about memberships. But what I did was I took a look at our community and what we've been able to build. And I am very passionate about creating safe spaces and inclusion. And that's what this is all about. I didn't do one group, which I should have. But in true Sarah style, I did 3, which is a lot of work. But I wanted to make sure that everybody felt like they had a space. I'm excited about that one.
So where can people learn about each of those 3 opportunities?
Yeah, Secret Society of Supply Chain.
Okay. And so all 3 of them will be there. I'm super passionate about communities myself. I have one for supply chain entrepreneurs, and it's a virtual group that gets together every month. It's a paid membership model. And we haven't, until very recently, even started talking about it publicly because it's grown word of mouth and slowly by design. The goal isn't to get big. The goal is to make something that's sticky and that lasts for a long time. And the only way I know how to do that is if you get people in a room that care about the same general topic, in this case, supply chain entrepreneurship. But more than that, that's not going to keep people. More than that, they have to have a common set of values and rituals and inside jokes even that go deeper and are very, very personal. And so within the community that you're building and that you already have, what are some of the hallmarks of what it looks like that somebody listening would say, that's for me. That's what I've been looking for.
So the Supply Chainers is really about exclusive content. So you're not going to find this content from me anywhere else out there. It's about bringing everybody together around best practices, around some of the biggest experts in the industry, and being able to network virtually on a casual basis with other people in supply chain. But it's not just for C-suite. It's not just for directors.
Sure.
It's for everybody at every level to learn from each other. And then the virtual monthly meetup for women in supply chain, we had a gap, right? We were doing things once a year, but what would that ongoing support look like? And so I have got 2 professional facilitators who do this for very large organizations for professional and personal development so that we can support each other on a regular basis for women in supply chain. And then the same goes for the creative room, which is for the marketing professionals in supply chain. We don't have a lot of places for them to go and come together and learn from potential clients and ask the right questions and see what trade shows are working for people and, how does it work? So it's really, there is something for everybody in all of those groups. And I hope I answered your question. But we are getting like the testimonial from the first woman in supply chain cohort. They weren't quite sure what they were going to expect. And after the first one, they were so blown away. They were like, I cannot wait till the next one. Why is the next one a month away?
That's amazing. That's when you have something where they're going to receive exponential value and they'll start talking about it. And that word of mouth just starts to steamroll 1 week or one engagement at a time. And I think people are really desperate for connection right now. It's my own personal belief that the rise in community as a business is built at its core on feeling isolated. And there's a gap in the market because we can't all be in the same place physically. Conferences are great for doing that and having a meal with other people, but specifically in supply chain, it's a global industry. So people are spread all over the place, and simply being able to connect in a small group, talk about what's hard, what you're stuck on, what you need help with, or even just a personal update. Look, I'm having a hard time with this health issue. Just that letting some air out of the tires is offering a value well beyond the industry. It's having a social impact and a human impact. And that as fuel for people who want to use their platforms for good is way more powerful than making money.
Well, and it's my way of being able to give back.
Yes, exactly.
Because people have followed and supported me, and they continue to do that. And I am humbled every single time, somebody comes up to me at a conference or what have you. And it's my way of giving back, giving them the safe space that I've created on my show that I can't give to everybody, right? I can't have everybody on the show, but they see it and they hear it through the content that we create and that we put out. And I wanted to give that back to the community, and that's what we've done.
Do you have a community that you belong to? As a member, not as a facilitator or a leader.
No, I don't. I have a few groups on LinkedIn. I think I'm not very active in those, though. I tend to put my head down and just get things done. But I have thought about joining one. Actually, no, there is one. I recently joined.
Okay. Is that a business owners group, I think, right?
It's an entrepreneurship.
Okay, sure.
Yeah. But from a variety of different industries. And I'm going to my first event coming up.
Well, I hope you get the support that you need, because it sounds like you spend most of your time offering it to other people.
Yeah, but I get so much out of it.
In the giving, yeah.
Not just the giving, but even the conversation. And being able to provide that community, I get so much back out of it as well, because each conversation is something that you can learn.
Shifting gears just a little bit, or going back to the causes part of things. Yeah. I follow the women in trucking. There was just a webinar put on a handful of weeks ago by a handful of gentlemen trying to be better allies to women in supply chain. From your vantage point, how do you prefer to receive support when it comes to women in supply chain? And what are examples of the wrong way to offer support?
I think one of the biggest ways that anybody can provide support, and this goes for women as well. We have the Women in Supply Chain series. We feature 2 women a month. Go and listen, go and read, and when one resonates with you, post about it, comment about it, empower that person. Because the women that I feature feel like it's braggy sometimes to post about them being on the show or post about them being a part of that series. And the only way that we're going to fix that is by the humans in this industry going and actually taking the time to read it or listen and post about it with comments and empower that person. Tag that person. I resonated with this part of your journey because of this. I loved it when you spoke about this. That is encouragement. That is what we need in allyship. Because too often, they're either not advocating for themselves or people don't even know that it exists because people aren't talking about it.
What I love the most about that is it's free. It's the encouragement that the return that investment offers can change the trajectory of someone's life. If they suddenly have the confidence to go and try some new thing, and all it cost was a like and a small comment, or even better, a share and a private message saying, man, that really connected with me. Those are my favorite messages that I receive, are somebody saying, the story that you shared of so-and-so's journey really spoke to me. And I'm just sharing their story. It's not even my story. And so it's such an honor and a privilege to be able to lift other people up. And you never know, because it lives digitally forever, you never know how that might impact somebody. And then you get these small sparks that pop up every now and then of somebody commenting on something that you wrote 2 months ago or even longer. And then it gets new life breathed into it. And that in my case, the founders who I support, they get another little boost. And that's so necessary. Our world is so insincere at times. There's a veneer, put up, and yet encouragement and that empowerment and support is real. It's not just on LinkedIn. It's not just on Instagram. It's a human being on the other side of that screen.
And I think the other thing to do is use your feedback dollars. You go to a conference and they ask you for feedback, use it. Use it and say whether you saw enough diverse voices on stage. Use it to say whether you saw enough women on stage. And if you didn't, tell them. And if they need a list of people who are raising their hands who are diverse voices, tell them to DM me, because I have a list of people and I can give them that list to make it easier. And if those people can't show up because of travel expenses,
cover the travel expenses. Yes, exactly.
We can cover that too. So there are no excuses.
Can you talk about that? What that program is so people know?
Sure. So one of the biggest barriers to seeing diverse voices on industry stages is travel expenses, right? Oftentimes people have to leave a job where maybe they won't get paid. They have to pay for childcare. Then they have to pay for travel expenses on top of that just to be able to say yes to a speaking engagement. And it's one of the number one barriers, like I just said. And so we are giving away grants to cover travel expenses so that diverse voices can say yes to speaking engagement. And all you have to do is apply. Go to blendedpledge.org. We're looking for individual donations on our GoFundMe page, corporate sponsorships, which are larger donations. We need volunteers. We are a startup nonprofit, and we are doing everything with a very small group of people. And then we need applicants. And it's not just in supply chain. We are doing this for industries all over the world. Well, I mean, they're for U.S. conferences now. We need somebody legal on the board to help us expand that. But we have already given away 7 grants, and we are helping to make a visible impact on industry stages. And it's super exciting.
Well, having that representation in visible places is also very, very powerful. I applaud you for doing that work. That's amazing. And I'll make sure that we share out the links and the socials to make sure that more people get their eyeballs on that and can support underrepresented voices. It's powerful to see yourself on stage. And if you're not represented, then we still have work to do. Are there any other things, any news or exciting things that you're working on that you want to share?
So many things, but I can't tell you. No, I'm just kidding. After 2025, but we've got a lot of work to do in 2024, and we're always working on new things, always. So follow us to find out.
Any special domain names come to mind?
Okay, I see where you're going. So I do have a 5-letter domain for anybody in the supply chain industry who is looking for a 5-letter domain. I own Ship, S-H-I-P-Z or Z for the Americans, .com, and it's for sale. So if you know anybody that would like a domain, a 5-letter domain. That's super cool. I've also got the branding, the original branding, and a LinkedIn page with 1,200 followers.
There are not a lot of 5-letter domain names out there. That's a hot ticket. We'll publish this. It's possible you will have sold this already by the time that your episode publishes, but if it doesn't, ships.com needs representation too. So we have to get that out in the world and get it to some good use.
Oh, and one more thing. We are launching live shows all the time, hosted by other people. So if you follow Let's Talk Supply Chain on LinkedIn, we are coming out with live shows. Like I said, not hosted by me, but hosted by other people. And we'd love to have everybody watch those and attend them because we're empowering different voices in the industry. And that's kind of what it's all about, right?
It's big work.
In the beginning, because I'd work for free.
We're always looking to celebrate the underdog, the bootstrappers, those who start with nothing and try to build something. And if we can offer them some tailwinds and support, that's why we exist. And we're proud to be a free podcast for founders. There's no cost to being on the show for Bootstrap founders because we're doing it for the love of the industry and for entrepreneurship and lifting up the underdog. So Sarah, thank you so much for sharing your story. I've been wanting to chat with you for a long time. We still have so much more to continue the conversation on because I want to pick your brain on 104 different topics so that one day I can be where you're at.
Well, you already are. Just keep going. Just keep going. There's a few things to do. But thank you so much for the work that you're doing in the industry because it's making a difference. It's making an impact. And I appreciate you for having me on the show.
Thank you, Sarah. We're all rooting for you.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the Bootstrapper's Guide to Logistics, and a special thank you to our sponsors and the team behind the scenes who make it all possible. Be sure to like, follow, or subscribe to the podcast to get the latest updates. To learn more about the show and connect with the growing community of entrepreneurs, visit logisticsfounders.com. And of course, thank you to all the founders who trust us to share their stories.